I'll be honest, I've never played Poppy Playtime before this video. It came out in 2021, I'd heard about it, seen the memes, even watched a few clips of Huggy Wuggy chasing people down claustrophobic vents. I knew that there was a hardcore OG fanbase that's probably going to eviscerate my throat when I say something wrong or inaccurate in this video. But for some reason, I just never got around to playing it myself. So after finally diving into it, I've gotta say, I should have played it a long time ago. Because what I thought was just another indie horror game with a creepy mascot turned out to be something much more, a layered, unraveling mystery that only got deeper and more fascinating with each chapter. I was actually hooked, and I found myself going deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole, literally and metaphorically. At first, it seemed like a simple haunted toy factory story, but the more I played, the more I realized that Poppy Playtime was hiding something far more insidious beneath its surface, something more riveting than your average mascot horror. But now, I understand what people were saying when they said that Indigo Park was just a copy of Poppy, but the game doesn't just throw monsters at you, it slowly builds a sense of unease, making you question what really happened inside of Playtime Co. You find yourself thirsting for the truth, and even when you get closer to it, there are more secrets to be uncovered. I still have a lot of secrets to uncover, and hopefully you guys will be in the comments letting me know some of the things that I missed or some theories that I was unaware of that I don't cover in this one. But the thing that gets me is that as you slowly start to figure out what is happening piece by piece, you end up having no other words to describe this story except fucked up. That's what this story really is. It is full on foobar, fucked up beyond all recognition. Chapter by chapter, the game peels back at its secrets, revealing just enough to keep you hooked while still leaving plenty of room for speculation and wonderment. And it all starts with chapter 1. So let's go back to the beginning and break down exactly what happens in the first chapter step by step, and then we're going to uncover what the game was already hinting at from the very start. If you're an original fan, I'm talking day one, let me know in the comments. Tell me that you're a real one. If you're like me, who is new to the series, let me know what you think about the story so far. I'm going to analyze the story from chapter 1 to 4, and if you have any additional information, please share with the class. Please do, I'm here to learn. Like the video if you find yourself liking it, give that dislike button a love tap if you don't, it helps with the engagement, and welcome to the story thus far of
Poppy Playtime.
The very first thing that draws us into Poppy Playtime is the odd, almost nostalgic tone of the vintage Poppy commercial that we see right at the start. But a grainy VHS tape flickers to life and we're introduced to Elliot Ludwig, the Walt Disney behind Playtime Co. He tells us about Poppy, the first truly intelligent doll in the world, and if that statement doesn't set off any alarm bells, I don't know what will, because an intelligent doll, a toy that's capable of full-blown conversations, it sounds like a major leap in AI, but it also kind of reminds me of that movie Annabelle. The tape transitions into a commercial for Poppy, featuring a cheerful narrator describing the doll's features. Poppy can talk, interact, and even ask for help polishing her shoes, reinforcing that she is more than just a simple toy. But then there's a line that feels eerily out of place. She says that she's a real girl, just like you. That line alone is a bit eluding to me. The commercial ends with an upbeat call to action, a factory tour for just $2.99. Yes, you heard it right, cheaper than a gallon of gas, especially if you live in California. But that's when the screen distorts and we see an image of a large flower painted on the wall, followed by the cryptic letter that changes everything. The letter came with the VHS tape, saying, "Everyone thinks the staff disappeared 10 years ago. We're still here, find the flower." Now, who sent this message? What staff? Trapped? What flower? How is this not a bigger issue that involves the authorities? The marketing, the secrecy, the shifting, chilling tone, it was clear that Playtime Co. wasn't just an ordinary toy manufacturer, but what I didn't understand was that I was about to make one of the biggest mistakes in my 3 decades of living. Following the message's instructions, we step into the Playtime factory, and immediately the atmosphere is suffocating. like a darkness is trying to swallow you. The place is abandoned yet eerily intact. Dust and grime cover the floors, but the lights are still on. The air hums with a low mechanical drone, and the colorful mural of Huggy Wuggy feels menacingly inviting. We find our first VHS tape featuring Leith Pierre, the head of innovation, who delivers an unusual warning and threatening monologue about the factory's security measures, motion sensors, emergency alarms, and something far worse that he refuses to explain. I don't want to find out what worse is.
So, you've got my warning. It's not too late to turn around. I just hope that you're certain whatever you're doing is worth it.
But, at this point, it's hard not to question why a toy factory needed extreme security measures in the first place. They're hiding something, obviously, but what? Ignoring the warning, because of course we do, and because the story needs to move forward, we proceed further and obtain the GrabPak, a strange employee-assisting device with extendable hands. It's fantastic. The blue hand allows us to interact with doors and electrical circuits, and we use it to unlock the main lobby, and that is where we're going to meet him, Huggy Wuggy, Playtime Co.'s most terrifying creation. Now, this is the first real sign of danger. It's subtle, but I still found myself tilting my head and going, huh. Standing in the center of the lobby is a massive Huggy Wuggy statue, or at least that is what we assume at first. Huggy Wuggy is a towering, blue furry, Muppet-like toy creature with an unnerving, wide, frozen grin, his black, soulless eyes boring into me as if he's watching me. His sheer imposing height alone makes him feel intimidatingly scary, but surely it's just a toy, right? Trying to open another door, the power suddenly shuts off, but then stranger things happen. A key jangles in Huggy's hand. I don't remember seeing that there before, but sure. Grabbing the key, we enter the power room, notice a dino toy on the floor with some blood, complete a simple puzzle, which by the way, I hate puzzles, and this entire game is all puzzles. We restore the power, and return to the lobby, but when we do, Huggy is gone. We are so cooked, chat. And this is where everything starts to unravel. The once abandoned factory is no longer empty. As we push deeper into the facility, Huggy Wuggy begins to subtly taunt us as his arms slither away against the wall. In the warehouse, we see the doll mare that this factory is, what with all the headless baby dolls there are, and at this point we're also introduced to a Stella Graber, through a pink VHS recording. She ecstatically talks about her love for toys, but then also mentions something about how...
Poof! Human bodies just can't stay young forever.
Well, that's just foreboding. Grabbing the red hand allows us to open the conveyor belt forward, where we're going to see a poster talking about how the company had some sort of initiative, some plan to deal with foster care and to help out orphans. And this is going to come into play in later chapters. Powering up a machine, noticing that the eyes are following us, we create a Catbee toy. We scan it at the gate, but as soon as we enter the hallway... Well, we found out where Huggy went, and no, he's not just a statue. He emerges from the shadows and he's coming for us. But my question is, why didn't he attack us right when we walked in? Why play with us? We bolt for the vents, diving into the narrow metal doors. Huggy is right behind us, and this chase sequence is pure terror fuel. The factory layout is twisted in a maze of vents, tunnels, and dead ends. Dropping down below, Huggy's massive limbs stretching unnaturally as he shifts through spaces where he shouldn't even fit. His low growls echo through the metal, and every wrong turn could spell out death. Finally, we reach a catwalk. With no other options, we topple a massive crate onto Huggy, sending him plummeting into the darkness below. As he falls, a dark red liquid splatters against the pipes, almost like blood. Now, that is extremely telling, because why would a toy bleed? With Huggy defeated, probably gone forever, we watch a VHS tape telling us about something called Experiment 1006. Now, this is the first time that we're going to hear about what is known as the prototype, but it's definitely not going to be the last. During the recording, we hear a muffled yelling and banging as the scientist talks about an event that happened today and how the prototype was behind it. The way he describes the prototype is as if the company had made some scientific breakthrough or advancement, as the prototype is supposedly ideal in terms of its mental capacities. Finally reaching the giant flower that we saw from the VHS tape, we would see hung up blood-covered toys. Inside, we would find something unexpected. A pristine, vintage dollhouse-like corridor leading into a room. And then going further in, we would open the door to a red room. And it's weird because this entire section is just out of place with the factory. Here, it's almost like a shrine, but it's what's right in front of us, in the middle, that steals our attention. A glass case housing Poppy herself. I open the case. Then, immediately, the lights flicker. The factory groans, and then...
You opened my case.
Everything cuts to black. Now, what exactly is Poppy? Was she another experiment like Huggy? And more importantly, is she a friend or foe? Did we just release something far more dangerous free? From the very first moments, Chapter 1 builds tension through environmental storytelling, cryptic lore, and an escalating sense of dread, but what is truly terrifying is that this is only the beginning. And if Chapter 1 was any indication that things were about to get a lot worse, in the words of the great philosopher and poet Frank Sinatra, the best is yet to come. Chapter 2 would introduce us to kids singing about another toy called Mommy Longlegs. They were singing to the tune of Itsy Bitsy Spider, and I think that's pretty fitting. Abruptly, the commercial would switch to some haunting found footage imagery of a park, someone running through the factory, and then cutting to Poppy telling us to wake up. Waking up back in Poppy's room, something was already wrong. The glass case was empty, the lights were off, and Poppy was gone. I tried to leave, but the entrance was blocked. The only way forward was through a white door hidden behind a toppled closet. When I stepped... Actually, how did that closet get toppled at all? I mean, Poppy was really small, so I'm confused. How did she even move that? When I stepped through, I realized just how vast this... Actually, no. At this point, I thought that the factory was vast, but this is not even as big as it gets. Because beyond Playtime Co.'s brightly colored corridors and mascot-plastered walls, an endless industrial labyrinth stretched into the darkness. This was no simple toy factory. This was something much, much bigger. After wandering through the dimly lit hallways and ominous murals of Huggy Wuggy, I found another toy splattered in blood before finding myself in a vintage-style office, none other than Elliot Ludwig's office. We would find children's drawings hung up all around, and one picture that I want to zoom in on here is one of a pink version of Huggy Wuggy named Kissy, and next to her is a little girl with red hair. They're dancing together and they seem to be very close. On Elliot's desk, we find a note for Experiment 814, a couple hundred experiments prior to Experiment 1006, or the prototype. It recounts an experiment where they tried to revive a rat using a mixture of properties within poppy flowers and some other gel mix. The results did not bring the rat back, but it did note that something bigger might produce the findings, the results that they're looking for. Okay, so poppy flowers, seeds, are used for a variety of things, but most of you probably know that the poppy is actually used in drugs. Opium, codeine, morphine. If you watched Game of Thrones, milk of the poppy probably sounds familiar to you. Popping a tape into the VHS, we hear a biography about Ludwig. It talks about how Playtime Co. was his creation, how he got divorced, and in 1960, a family death destroyed him. But how, despite that, he would come back to continue his work within the factory. Now, the tape cuts out here. I spotted a ventilation shaft leading further in. Crawling through the narrow space, I finally found Poppy. It was strange. She seemed nervous, but she was also grateful that we released her from her case, so maybe she isn't a threat. She explained that there was a train station nearby and she had the code to operate it. Now this was it. This was my way out. Following her through the vents, she would eventually stop at a large chasm. She turned to say something to me, but before she could finish, a pink elastic arm shot out from the darkness below and yanked her violently down. Her scream echoed through the factory as she vanished into the abyss. I barely had time to process what had just happened before jumping down after her, compelled to save her for some reason. I landed outside the gates of something called the game station. After spending way too long on a puzzle that I actually didn't look the answer up for this time, we head down a long hallway. And as I sent my hand out to scan, she emerged. Descending from the ceiling, Mommy Longlegs revealed herself in full, a twisted, spider-like creature with elastic limbs. She moved with unnatural grace, her movements fluid yet terrifyingly unpredictable.
You're going to have so much fun. Head to Musical Henry, and Mommy will get things started.
After her sinister dialogue, where she strongly encourages me to hit the like button, play 3 games in order to win train codes and escape, she slithers back up into the shadows where, again, I find myself alone, with no choice but to play her games. Heading into the game station, we find the eerie pastel-colored playgrounds and oversized mascot murals that should have been comforting, and I imagine that for kids it would be. This would be a world of fun, but after what I just witnessed, this felt like a trap. Now, I don't know why, but Chapter 2 seemed to be very buggy, and for a game that's this old, it was kind of annoying because this particular bug would cause my hands to just disappear at random points throughout the game, meaning I had no choice but to keep reloading my checkpoints. But after sorting through that, we grab a green hand, which allows us to use electricity to solve puzzles. We get to play musical memory with Bunzo. If we lose, he eats us, but eventually we get the first code and then move on to the next game. But the bridge would collapse, forcing us to take a detour, which would take us to a room full of defective toys. The next game requires us to play whack-a-mole, but with miniature Huggy Wuggies who like to, just like every other toy in this hellhole, eat us if we don't smack them in time. So when you're playing Poppy Playtime, you'll probably notice that every time you die, you see cryptic messages. I don't know who's sending us these messages. Sometimes it seems like it's coming from different people because there are some that are weird and cryptic gibberish. There's talks about the prototype and the others in the factory, how it's not our time to die yet. There's another message saying that death isn't permanent, one saying that they still need us alive. They all end, though, with telling us to get up. So I wonder who's telling us this, because apparently they have the power to resurrect us when we die. Maybe they're the same ones who sent us the letter back in the beginning that brings us to the factory in the first place. I don't know, but if you know, let me know. As we tried to find our way back to the game station, we would also find ourselves getting gated, prevented from moving forward. But that's when she didn't seem like she wanted to hurt us, but I was just traumatized from Huggy Wuggy chasing me in the vents, so I was a little bit on edge. Taking this cart along through to the next puzzle, we would find a tape of Jacksepticeye, except he's playing a character in a game called Marcus Brickley.
Well, I'm reaching for the thing, and the mob handle jolts on its own. Had me scared stiff. I thought I was the only one there. So I took a peek beneath the gate, and some massive bloody thing was doddering about the bloody hallway.
Thing? You're sure it wasn't a person?
Ain't no person that's 50 feet long with 1,000 legs.
Marcus, you're losing me. Maybe you just saw a bunch of people walking by.
A 50-foot monster with 1,000 legs. I wonder what that could be. Sending the cart through the barricade, we make our way out and start our third game. But before we begin, Mommy would make a statement I found intriguing, saying that we worked here, so we deserve to die, and die alone. There are some heavy implications here because up until this point, the character we play hasn't had any dialogue, nor have we been given any indications as to who we might be. Because until now, during my playthrough, all I know is that the toy company is running experiments, or was running experiments, or maybe still is, creating toys that are alive and monstrous. But Mommy says that we worked here, at Playtime Co. and deserve a lonely death, which tells me that I was involved with the dastardly experiments going on here. But back to the game. When the lights are off, we move, but freeze when the lights are on. Race to the end and avoid getting chomped on by PJ Pugapillar. Regardless, it doesn't matter because
the game was rigged from the start.
And Mommy knew it, as at the end of the course, we find that it's been blocked off by debris. However, I did manage to find a path up on the side, and after accidentally falling down a hole, Mommy became furious that I cheated. She tries to bargain with us to get us to come back, but we just keep swimming, and she becomes increasingly psychotic. Mommy can't wait to punish me. Finding a transfer request regarding Mommy, we see that her name was actually Marie Payne, a human name. The facilitators noticed that she was hostile towards staff, but ever warm and protective of the other experiments like a mother should be. So, as a result, they decided that she would be best put at the game station. Here, she would likely not be hostile towards the children, and rowdy kids would learn to listen to their mother. After watching a VHS tape of Jimmy Roth, the obnoxious marketing director for the company, we move on to the next area. Something else weird that I've noticed throughout the game is that all of these cutouts with buttons on them have voices that end up responding in bizarre ways if you keep pressing them, as if they are sentient within the cardboard cutouts themselves. But I haven't come to any conclusions myself yet. If you know something, let me know. I try not to watch other people's videos so I don't let their work influence mine, so I don't know if somebody has already addressed this. But pressing on, Mommy would find us, and she was definitely not happy. And after chasing us through the factory, she would eventually almost catch us, but I was able to trap her. However, as she was about to be pulled in, about to be minced and crushed, her biggest fear wasn't death. It was that
You'll make me part of you! You can't do this to me!
That is when we see a large mechanical hand scoop out from beneath a gate, scraping her remains under, pulling her away. Now, what did Mommy mean when she said, becoming part of him? Speaking of him, the next tape we find talks about how he nearly breached containment at some point. The prototype showcased an alarming level of intelligence by Mickey Mousing together a laser pointer with parts from inside his room in order to disable the camera and then hiding in a blind spot. When the guards would check the cameras, seeing that he wasn't there, that is when they would go in to open the door and check. However, when they did that, the prototype would attempt to escape through the opened door. Luckily, they were able to remotely lock him back up. The scientist on the tape furthered that they would try to prevent following experiments from having that level of intelligence and capacities for violence. He would end the log by saying that Huggy Wuggy was by far the most optimal outcome due to his lack of intelligence and level of obedience. Grabbing the last code we need to get on the train, Poppy, released from her webby confines, in a robotic yet eerily sinister tone asks if we killed Mommy before saying, good. We find a letter talking about how the company wants to add fake windows to add artificial lights in the game station. Because you have to remember that we're very deep underground. But the crazy thing is, it's about to get even deeper, but not as deep as my love for my wife. I thought escaping Playtime Co. was finally within reach. After surviving the horrors of Chapter 2, I boarded the train, expecting it to carry me out of this nightmare. Until I found out that Poppy had other plans. Before I could even react, she changed the tracks. The train spiraled out of control, hurtling deeper into the factory before violently crashing. And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I wasn't alone. A deep, unsettling purring filled the air, and I felt myself being carried. My head spun, vision blurry, but I caught glimpses of my captor, a feline figure, its sharp grin stretching impossibly wide. This was CatNap. He didn't speak, he just purred, his breath slow, deliberate, savoring the moments like a predator toying with his prey. And then, without hesitation, he approached a hatch and tossed me down the chute like discarded trash. And I crashed into a trash compactor. Before I could even process what was happening, the walls would begin to close in. Panic set in as I freaked out trying to find a way out, and then I happened to find an opening. With no other choice, I squeezed through just as the walls slammed shut behind me. Climbing up to a higher platform, I finally caught my breath. Proceeding forward, we would catch movement to the right. You see, CatNap was crawling through a vent, still stalking me. Before we move forward, we gotta talk about the commercial that played at the start of Chapter 3. You see, it seemed, at first, just like another Playtime Co. ad, this time for the Smiling Critters, a colorful Saturday morning cartoon cast designed to sell toys. The usual jingle played, cheery and upbeat, and then the tone would shift. The critters were huddled together inside their house during a storm, afraid of the howling wind. Then, a knock at the door. It creaked open, and CatNap stood there, grinning. The critters begged him for help, and he obliged, exhaling a thick red gas. At first, they laughed hysterically, but then the laughter slowed. Their eyes drooped, and one by one, they collapsed. And then, a cut to black. A second later, the commercial was interrupted by a news broadcast. Of course, CatNap was an actual toy, except parents all over the country reported disturbing effects. Children suffering violent nightmares, insomnia, even sleepwalking. And in every case, the CatNap doll was always found sitting beside their beds. Playtime Co. tried to erase him, recalling every toy, scrubbing him from promotional materials, but we know how this company operates. They don't eliminate their failures, they repurpose them. And now, CatNap was real. A VHS tape from a deeply frantic mother would further this narrative as she described what the toy did to her daughter. It seemed that whatever gas CatNap released is some sort of psychoagent reminiscent of Scarecrow from Batman, where people hallucinate and then go into a state of belligerent madness. But shaking off the unease, I would navigate onward to see a cutout of Bubbaphant, who would remark about how he remembers me. But that's not the creepiest part, because when he asks us,
"An elephant always remembers. Want to know what I remember about you?"
And this is just another small hint at our past here at Playtime Co. But somewhere in the distance, the phone was ringing. And against my better judgment, I followed the sound. Picking up the receiver, I heard the voice of a child. This is Ollie, and he knew exactly where I was. But Ollie wasn't just a random survivor, because he somehow had access to the factory's old comm systems, despite them presumably being inactive for however long. He even sent me a battery through a pneumatic tube system in order to help me progress, but it's what he said next that chilled me.
"I know you're probably mad at Poppy for not letting you escape, but she needs you. We need you. You are our mission. Together, we can save a lot of people."
So, I wasn't just a lost intruder, I was part of something bigger. And it got me thinking, maybe it's these survivors down here that sent me the tape and the letter in the beginning as well, but how could they have done that? Then he gave me a final warning, that Playcare is ahead, and it is CatNap's home, his church, his hunting ground. Just like my chonky cats at home, CatNap holds dominion over his territory. Eventually I reached Elliot Express, an old cable car system seemingly meant to transport people deeper into Playtime Co. The cable car jostled slightly as it made its way deeper underground. The speakers crackled to life and a video flickered on the screen above. Elliot Ludwig's voice filled the air. He spoke about what the world needed: money, understanding, faith, but he said that all of these things are missing something much simpler: a smile. However, after riding through the red clouds, the world would open up once more, and I finally saw it. Inside this massive dome was Playcare. Playtime Co. pulled a fallout, and built an entire live-in facility underground. Ludwig's voice continued, describing it as a place where children, orphans, could be safe, where they would never have to be afraid again, where they could even go to school, but you and I both know it's, again, not that simple. The doors opened up and I stepped into the ruins of Playcare. The place looked like it once was full of life, but right now, it's cold, empty, abandoned, perpetuated by the overwhelming silence. That is until Ollie spoke. He pointed me to the center of the dome where I could go underneath and power all of Playcare. Here, he sends me a key and then tells me to go to the gas production zone. The room ahead was dominated by a massive machine, its pipes stretching all along the walls and carrying something ominous inside. But more importantly, I could tell that there was going to be a lot of puzzles ahead of me. Ollie's voice came through again, and he tells me that this place is responsible for producing the red smoke. It was the gas that powered Playcare. It controlled the facility, and somehow it was also connected to CatNap. But the machine needed power. So, I had to find a way to redirect the gas, and after grabbing a new hand, which allows me to jump to new heights, we finally redirect the gas. But somebody cuts the power, so Ollie instructs me to get another key and then head to home sweet home. Entering the orphanage, the air grew thick with an eerie red smoke swirling around like a living entity, attempting to collapse upon me. Each breath felt heavy, disorienting, but the only way out was through. The corridors stretched endlessly, dimly lit by flickering lamps. I constantly stopped and went forward, expecting a jump scare at every step. My pulse quickened as I stumbled upon an old radio crackling with static, and the news spoke of a boy who had been found on the estate of a late Elliot Ludwig. It detailed how the body had been disturbed, organs and key bones missing. It wasn't just a murder, it was something far worse. Another radio sputtered to life down the next hallway. Playtime Co. had responded to the accusations against Ludwig, and they called it sickening, denying Ludwig's involvement with the boy, portraying him as a man who loved children. But beneath the corporate pleasantries, the message felt hollow, because something was being covered up. And then, a phone rang. The sound echoed from the windows to the walls, to the blood dripping down the halls, piercing the suffocating silence. Ollie's voice cut through the static.
You need to run!
My stomach dropped. I turned sharply, just in time to see CatNap watching me like a weirdo from a darkened hallway. Now you can't tell, probably, by my gameplay, but I was freaking the fuck out, man. But I moved forward, my pace quickening. Another radio blared nearby, its message even more frantic than the last. It mentioned that Ludwig had become a recluse, that he kept strange hours at the factory. We could probably presume that he became this way after the death of his loved one and also after being divorced by his wife. Now, if his wife divorced him, that means that she's still alive, or she still was alive, meaning that whoever it was that died, that Ludwig really cared about, so much so that he became a recluse and was devastated and his world shattered, was somebody else. The only other person, I think, in somebody's life who could have such a gravitational effect would probably be a child. Their kid died, causing Ludwig to dive into work, and as a result of that, his wife would divorce him. Their marriage strained. The broadcast would glitch, and I would hear the words, don't move an inch. I froze for a bit because I haven't heard a radio tell me what to do since PT. But I did keep moving. The hallway twisted into an impossible loop, and at the end of a hallway, I saw an office behind a glass wall. A whiteboard inside bore the words, "Guilt haunts you." Following the sound of a distant sobbing, leading me to a room at the very end, the door creaked open, revealing a flickering television, and next to it, a cutout of Wuggy. But then, he would also show up on the screen, his static-filled face grinning at me. A record played.
Should you come back years later, your conscience finally getting the better of you, may you descend into the dark and the dust, finding all that awaits you are incomprehensible horrors, each hungry for your return, each eager that they might find you. Perhaps they'd smile at you from a shadow, their smiling mouths full of teeth and meat and plastic, watching and waiting patiently for their turn at a warm welcome. Or perhaps they won't allow you such time to figure your place in the world you'd left, a world that's theirs now. Welcome.
See, I was supposed to run, but I was just stun-locked because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Huggy Wuggy was supposed to be dead, and yet here he was in front of me pulling a ring. But then again, I think this was supposed to happen because when I wake up, we're back at the entrance of Home Sweet Home. What probably happened was that we never actually went anywhere. We were here the whole time on the floor, just having a bad trip due to the red smoke we inhaled when we first came in. Now inside the actual orphanage, we're able to work on activating the generator here. But first, we find a VHS tape recording of somebody named Brooks, who says that Dr. White has chosen Sam Lee to be adopted. He'll be leaving and the kids cheer for him, but for some reason, Sam in the video appears to be sad, crying. I'm starting to think that the kids aren't actually being sent to live with new families. In light of everything so far, I'm starting to think that these experiments have something to do with these orphans, which makes sense for the company because who's going to be looking for kids in foster care? Nobody. As we're leaving the orphanage, something grabs me and slams me to the ground, and I've never paused the game so quickly before.
It's over. We are screwed.
No! No! Let go! They didn't do anything wrong. They're actually here to help.
Before the attack can escalate, Poppy intervenes, urging Kissy to stop, reassuring her that we are not the enemy. She acknowledges that this place has taken a toll on everybody, including Kissy, and she also reveals that Ollie was the one who guided them to the player in the first place. As we get back up, we see Poppy perched on Kissy's shoulder, and they take us up an elevator. She makes one thing clear: she's not our enemy, but also that she couldn't let us leave either. Because what's happening in Playcare is bigger than any of them, and she needs our help. This isn't just about escape anymore. This is about vengeance against the monsters who have tormented them. It's about stopping the cycle, and the root of it all, the prototype. Also, I just noticed that Poppy has weirdly human eyes. It's even got veins, and I think she's actually one of the only toys or monsters down here that have extremely human eyes. Restoring power to the dome, Kissy silently moves to a corner of the lift while Poppy prepares them for the harsh truth ahead. Kissy looks sad, and her mannerisms are that of somebody who is shy and traumatized, very human qualities. But the prototype knows that they're coming, and if they try to flee now, he's going to kill them before they even make it to the exit. He is the reason that she was trapped in that case for so long. The things that the prototype has done are unimaginable. But what I don't understand is why didn't the prototype just kill Poppy? She seems to be actively rebelling against him, and instead of killing her, he just encases her. Also, this has me thinking, why didn't CatNap just kill us too? Why didn't he kill us instead of sending us to different places and playing with us? But then again, cats do like to play with their prey. Convinced we are capable of stopping whatever is going on down here and killing the prototype, we are compelled to continue the fight, their war for some reason. Or perhaps there is more to the story, we just haven't fully realized it yet. I mean, apparently, we used to work here. Some of the toys seem to recognize us. Plus, in the hallucinations, we did see the words on the wall in that office talking about how guilt haunts us. So maybe our character feels a deeper conviction to right his wrongs. As the lift returns to the ground, the air fills with an unsettling rattling behind the walls. Poppy turns to the player one last time before she and Kissy ascend once more. CatNap is coming, and he is the only obstacle standing between me and my goal. Almost immediately, Ollie's voice crackles through the receiver. Now we need to redirect the energy back to the gas production zone. With that, Ollie sends the key for the next area and we make our way to school. Again, another issue within the game itself of Poppy Playtime. My game crashed when I came into the school, and when I reloaded the checkpoint, everything was locked and I couldn't do anything. Now, luckily, I was able to go into the folder that had my save data file for the game, and I replaced it with a proper save file. Thank you, speedrunning community. This school was in ruins. Dimly lit halls, overturned desks, and streaks of dried blood marking the walls. The whole place, this place just felt wrong. Ollie's voice crackled through the phone, warning me to get in, to turn on the generator, and then get out. Simple enough, right? But then, his voice cut out, replaced by a sickly sweet one over the PA system. Miss Delight. But as you're about to see, she's not that delightful. She was calling to unseen students, pretending that everything was normal. But for me, ignoring the teacher like an edgy middle schooler, I pushed forward and began to find more notes about what had happened down here. You see, there was an event called the Hour of Joy, and actually back at the orphanage, we would see references to the Hour of Joy. However, here in school, it seems that even weeks after that event, people had still been locked down here. But they weren't alone. So, one note would even recount the point at which the individual felt the need to create a weapon, which they would call Barb. Another note later would convey the images of people being trapped and starving down here in the school. And even one letter, whom I think is at this point probably from Miss Delight herself, talks about how her stomach was howling from the hunger, and that if she was very still, the others would think she was dead, allowing her to go full Jeffrey Dahmer.
Hey, Paul!
A fifth note would show that somebody had to eat others to survive, and seeing as right now Miss Delight is the only one here, but then I would hear Miss Delight over the intercom again. This time, she turned her attention to me. You see, she remembered me. She said that I used to work here, said that I shouldn't be alive, but also mentioned how I was here looking for my coworkers. Another potential hint? How does she know that? She would end up taunting me, talking about how I don't listen, that I'm just like the other humans. When I eventually did power up the school's generator, Miss Delight would come out and smash it to pieces with a jagged, spiked weapon. Hello, Barb. She turned to me, but then stopped. I moved in closer to get a better look, but as she was starting to eat me, I realized that even though she kind of looked like a toy, under her skin, it appeared to be flesh. I don't know how, but I'm convinced that Playtime Co. was conducting experiments that turned humans into toys. Again, how or why, I don't know, but these glaring clues are hard to ignore, and I can't help but think about that other indie horror game, Dollmare, which basically is a copy of this game. I just realized that Poppy Playtime was probably the inspiration for a lot of these types of games. Miss Delight would begin chasing me. Soon, I realized that she only moved when I wasn't looking, but if I looked at her, it almost seemed like she was dead. However, she would continue to stalk me through the classrooms and the corridors, her breathing ragged, her movements unnatural. Every glance away, every blink brought her closer. And then, just as I neared the exit, she broke the rules. No more slow approach. She lunged. I barely made it through the final gate, slamming it shut as she skidded forward, too late to stop. The impact crushed her instantly, her severed leg tumbling across the floor, but I still wasn't safe. I grabbed a new hand, orange this time, designed to fire flares. The caverns of Playcare were unlike anything before. Endless tunnels, broken catwalks, and pressure pushing down on me. As I navigated deeper, I saw something that I wish I hadn't. A grotesque pile of twisted toys and metal glowing with an eerie orange light, and in front of it, CatNap, doing the absolute cinema meme. He stood on his hind legs, arms stretched over the structure. In this moment, I realized he wasn't just another monster. He was worshipping something, and if I had to put my eddies anywhere, it would probably be on the prototype. But I turned to leave. However, when I looked back, he was gone. Now, if you zoom in on the altar he was worshipping, you can see that yes, they are a bunch of toys, but what you could also see is what appears to be an almost human skeleton hanging out of that dog centipede toy that chased us back in Chapter 2. Whatever this place was hiding, I had a feeling that I was about to find out. The playhouse was worse than expected, and God, I hated it in here. It felt so tight and dark and claustrophobic, but this wasn't just another abandoned section of the factory. This was his home. As I moved through the play area, the laughter of unseen toys echoed through the walls. Not the playful giggles of children, but something twisted, a mimicry of joy laced with malice. My entire time here was spent shooting these tiny toys that all wanted a piece of me. I fought them off and I continued until I saw him, DogDay, suspended by belts, his legs missing, his body barely holding on. In fact, you could even see his organs hanging out from below. His eyes flickered with recognition. He knew me. He spoke in strained gasps, calling me Poppy's angel as if I was some kind of savior. But he wasn't hopeful. He warned me, because this was CatNap's domain, where the prototype's will reigned supreme, and anybody who didn't follow orders would end up like DogDay. So all of the toys here didn't just follow orders, they followed out of fear. DogDay was the last of the smiling critters from the commercial at the beginning of this chapter, and he fought against this nightmare, and for that, he was left as a broken shell. But then, they came. Dozens of them, crawling from the walls, their bodies twitching, hungry. They swarmed DogDay, burrowing into his missing legs, forcing themselves inside of him, his body convulsed, his eyes wide in agonizing terror.
Please, just go! Run!
His scream was the very last thing I heard before that thing that had once been DogDay tore free from its restraints and came straight for me. And I ran. Twisting corridors, breaking floorboards, tunnels that led to nowhere. No matter where I turned, DogDay was right behind me, his corrupted form slamming against the walls, shrieking, clawing for me. Every turn led to another close call, his grotesque body relentless in its pursuit. Then, an opening. A slide. I didn't hesitate. I hit the bottom hard, stumbling into a dimly lit room. DogDay's growls echoed behind me, although the lift was already rising, separating us. His final furious roar faded as I ascended. Back in the dome, the artificial sun was setting. The phone rang. Ollie. He was relieved I made it, and then he asked me something that sent a chill down my spine.
That shrine? Did it scare you? If you thought that was terrifying, just wait until you see the real thing.
How does he know and see everything going on? Did the caverns have cameras too? If so, how many cameras are in this place? Or is Ollie following us? Ollie explains that CatNap was a disciple, that the prototype had saved him, and as a result he became a devout follower. And I was an intruder, a heretic. And then Ollie said that if we thought the shrine was terrifying, just wait until you see the real thing. I wasn't sure that I wanted to, but then again, that got me thinking also. The shrine, the real thing, what did he mean by that? The real shrine or the prototype? Because at this point, we still don't know what the prototype looks like. We only know from the descriptions that he is a 50-foot monstrosity with a lot of legs, so maybe the shrine was a sort of replica of the prototype? What do you guys think? But Ollie would send us to the counselor's office next. Finding a battery tucked away inside of a vent, it powered a nearby door, giving me access to what looked like an abandoned security room. Inside, there was a single VHS tape labeled Emergency Alert, and playing it revealed that some event happened, presumably the Hour of Joy, where everybody at Playtime Co. was warned, told to get out or hide. But this would be confirmed when the screen shows the word, the Hour of Joy has arrived. At the far end of a hall, a bunny toy wobbled forward before collapsing to the red smoke that was entering the room. But That's when CatNap shot through the smoke, and without hesitation, he snatched the prey and disappeared just as fast. Pressing on, we would enter Stella Graber's room. Scattered amongst the debris was a VHS tape labeled The Hartmann Incident. In it, Stella is talking with a couple, the Hartmans, who are wanting to adopt a boy named Jeremy. But Stella takes a look at Jeremy's form, confused and seemingly unaware of a new development, a complication. Jeremy's form simply had the word testing on it, which means the Hartmans can't bring him home. Of course, they're understandably vehement about the situation, especially since Stella is the head of Playcare, which has me entertaining the idea that it's possible Stella didn't even know about all the experiments because her reaction does seem genuine. But more on that later. Pushing on, a vent in the ceiling dropped a key, allowing me to progress further. After 2 long and hard puzzles of electrical sequences, I activated the backup generator, and it was going great, until I tried to leave. Something slammed into me. CatNap. The impact threw me across the room, my mask ripped away in the struggle, and before I could get back up, a heavy locker collapsed in front of the door, sealing me inside. Again, why doesn't he just kill me? Regardless, I would lose consciousness, and when my eyes reopened, I was outside, on the road leading to the factory. Poppy's voice whispered through the fog, telling me to find the flower. The dream continued to shift, pulling me deeper into the factory. At one point, I stood at the entrance of Home Sweet Home, watching as shadowy figures of children flickered in and out of sight, their faint laughter echoing. The scene twisted again. Miss Delight was in the classroom, her students frozen in their seats and their faces dark beyond recognition. Then the playhouse, where hushed voices murmured in the showers, the counselor's office, where a single silhouette sat alone at a table, and then darkness, a void. And from the shadows of the abyss, Huggy Wuggy would emerge, his grin jagged, unnatural, as if to say, "I'm still here." Suddenly, it was like chaos erupted. Sirens wailed, red lights strobed through the haze, and my vision blurred until I finally saw it. A massive hand reaching down. The prototype. I jolted awake to the sound of my phone ringing. Still disoriented, I grabbed it, expecting Ollie, but instead... a cold voice cut through the static, threatening me. CatNap told me to leave, or else. That was not happening. I shoved forward, back into the dome. The artificial glow had dimmed, casting everything into an unsettling night. After powering everything up and grabbing a blue battery, I went back to the gas production zone where I knew that everything was going to go without a single hitch. But of course I was wrong, because right as I was about to put the battery in, CatNap would chase me up, and then start to close in on me. But then Ollie would show me how to kill him. Soon, I would be able to overcharge my hand and shoot it at him, bursting him into flames. From the ceiling above, the prototype's hand would come down looking at CatNap, and at first, he seemed frightened. But then, CatNap would accept the prototype, offering himself up to him. After finally getting the gas moved over, I was ready to meet up with Poppy in the hatch room. Poppy decides that now I get to know the truth about what's going on. The reason we have to come back to Playtime Co-Factory is because of our coworkers. I am here because I want to know what happened and why, and she held the answer in her tiny doll hands. The hour of joy. At some coordinated moment, the toys launched a full-scale attack against the humans, and judging by everything we've learned so far, the prototype was the orchestrator. But what led to this slaughter, this massacre, and why? Poppy says she remembers the agony of the people who died during the hour. She said that it didn't matter if you were innocent or guilty. You were killed and then dragged below, your body to be consumed by the toys in order to stay alive. It's like if Toy Story was a horror movie. But innocent or guilty, she said. Guilty. Guilty of what? I have to assume that Playtime Co. was running experiments, turning humans into toys, mostly orphans, but also other employees within the company, or even related to those who worked in the company. But the way in which they went about turning humans into toys was horrific. It was torturous, and the toys would finally get fed up of being traumatized and brutalized, and the hour of joy was the moment of reckoning. As Kissy would come out to pick Poppy up, Poppy would state that the prototype needs to die for this. We would then hop onto another elevator lift where we were sent down below. Poppy promised to send the lift back up to Kissy as soon as we got down, and I don't know why she didn't just hop on. It's not like there wasn't enough room. Suddenly, Kissy's piercing screams began to penetrate the air. Someone or something was attacking Kissy, and it seemed like Kissy was losing.
Be cautious. There's something... What? What's she doing? This is... No! No! We're coming! Just hold on! Come on, go faster! Kissy!
Poppy, filled with panic, fear, and concern, would try to take us back up, but the hatch was closing on us, sending us into Chapter 4, the darkest chapter within Poppy Playtime. A commercial for another toy named Doey the Doughman flickered on screen, but what was creepy about this commercial was the 3 vats in a factory that would quickly blip onto screen before disappearing, but also a hand that rose up with goo dripping down, after which we would see an at-home vlog of a boy who just received a Doey toy. Try saying Doey toy 10 times fast. Doey toy, Doey toy, Doey toy. I can't do it. We also see that the boy received a ticket to visit the Playtime factory. The interesting thing about this commercial, as opposed to some of the other ones that we've seen, is that in this one, the boy actually has a name. We see that his name is Jack. The tape would continue to show their visit to tour the factory, but what they didn't expect was that Jack would fall over and go straight into the vat below. Lots of mistakes were made here. Jack for not having enough self-preservation sense, his parents for not teaching him that, and then not watching him closely enough, and also the tour guide for not keeping the group together. In fact, what was concerning was that as the camera stared at an angry Zoe's face, the tour guide would urgently tell somebody to shut the camera off. The factory had already shown me horrors beyond anything I could have imagined, but as the elevator continued its slow descent, I know worst is yet to come. Kissy was still up there, but there was nothing we could do. Poppy and I were already too far down. However, Poppy would still insist that I go on ahead so that she could go back up for Kissy, before stating that she's not going to sacrifice the plan because of herself. Now, what is she owning up to? Why does she feel guilty? Poppy warns us that this is going to be the most dangerous area of Playtime Co. She called this place hell, and that Playtime Co. didn't even try to hide it. In one room ahead, the words written in blood would announce that this was their cruel kingdom. But we move on, with Poppy's directive to find our allies. Pretty soon I found myself met with mountains of discarded toys, twisted remains of Playtime Co.'s failed creations. I mean, there were probably tens of thousands, if not even more, toys here. And if I am correct about the toys being previously humans, then these were tens of thousands of humans. It was such a weird and bizarre feeling being here because in one way I felt all alone, but also in another I didn't feel alone, especially as I could hear the slithering around me. I found a letter from a Riley who would log her thoughts about her ambivalence when it comes to being adopted. However, it wouldn't matter for her because Dr. White would choose her anyways. To her excitement, She said she hasn't felt this way since before the accident that killed her parents. She was a sweet girl who only wanted to be happy and to even start an orphanage to help others. But that's when a siren blared and floodlights pinned my location, cutting through the silence, and then they came. Mini Huggies, dozens of them crawling from the shadows with their unnaturally stretched grins. I barely had time to react before they were upon me, scampering across the floor, clawing at my cheeks, reaching for my face. My only saving grace was the flare gun in hand and my training as Bruce Banner in Marvel Rivals whenever I got knocked out of my Hulk form. Soon they would scurry away, realizing that I wasn't going to be that easy of a prey. I would try to find my way into the prison, and then I ended up finding an old train. Ollie would pop up on the phone again, informing us that all the bodies outside came from inside, and he oddly confirms that what Poppy said was true.
It's hell. And Playtime wanted it to be.
That this place is hell. But that's kind of strange. That's a bit strange because I didn't see Ollie on the lift with us. I didn't see him. Did you see him with us? Because I didn't. So how the flying duck does he know what was said? Is he spying on us? Is he listening in on our conversations? Are we bugged? Why have we yet to see this Ollie person? Pushing on, I found another letter from Riley. She was expecting to go home with a new family, but instead she woke up an abomination and she was thrown into a cell. She said that there must be hundreds of thousands of others down here. Poor thing. She even wondered if she did something wrong. She said that they were starving her, that they wanted her to eat the bodies. She refused, and she was going to hide the key that we need to get into the train room where nobody could find it, because she didn't want anybody else to have to go through this. Up in a suspended cell block, we find the key inside the stomach of what I am certain was a toy monster, but not just any. I think that's Riley. She hid the key in her stomach where, as she put it, nobody would find it. Brave girl. Starvation is a mighty painful and slow death. You can't help but feel solemnly for her. Opening the locked door below, we watched a tape about two guards talking about how the toys would scream and bang their heads all night, asking for their parents and counselors and stating, whatever they aren't people anymore. Confirming that Playtime Co. was turning orphans and others into toy abominations. Finally, an empty cell opened up, and it was waiting for me. I climbed inside and started it up. It was time to go through the gates of hell. The doors locked shut, and the train lurched forward, carrying me deeper into the unknown, but I wasn't alone. Because quickly after, a voice crackled through the unseen speakers, calm, calculating, and eerily amused. The doctor. He'd been watching me, studying me. He wanted to see what I was capable of, and he wasn't going to make this easy. The train screeched violently as it derailed, the cell rattling as darkness swallowed everything. When I woke up, I was inside the prison. I wasn't sure what was worse, the silence or the things lurking within it. I found a weekly checkup note talking about an experiment 1172. In it, we read about a depiction of how 1172 was emotional, showing signs of anxiety and depression, noting how she rubs the fur on her arms, like a coping mechanism. But, wait a minute, don't we see Kissy doing this? So, I'm convinced that Kissy is Experiment 1172. Another piece of conflicting information here was that Stella personally suggested that Kissy had scheduled social interactions with some of the other subjects, which seemed to help reduce the emotional overload Kissy was feeling when implemented. But this shows that Stella did know about the experiments down here. So I've been writing this script for like 6 days now, and I can't recall everything, at least all the time, all at once, everything that I experienced in the game, I mean. However, I do remember the kids drawing in Elliot's room. The one picture that had Kissy and a red-headed girl, right? You remember that picture. They were pretty close. Now, after seeing how Kissy and Poppy interact with each other and how close they are, I'm starting to think that that kid's drawing was of them. Except Poppy didn't look like Poppy, she looked like a regular girl, almost. But I'm pretty sure that was a reference to them. I guess Elliot, for some reason, was partial to Kissy and Poppy. Jumping down a hole and searching around, I found a lemon toy that I found to be quite amusing. It even spoke.
Limon!
The doctor's voice returned, taunting as he unleashed new horrors, nightmare critters. And I'm not gonna lie, I was getting tuned up in here. But I fought my way through, barely escaping by the skin of my teeth, and later I would find a prisoner profile for an experiment 1166, aka Yarnaby. The Dr. Harley Sawyer who oversaw Yarnaby was cruel, purposely isolating the creature to get a laugh or two, and to become its only world, in his words. The deeper I went, the more the doctor revealed. He says that he never thought he would see another human again, certainly not an employee. He knew about my encounters with the other experiments, and then he unleashed his prized experiment, Yarnaby.
Oh, Yarnaby.
Now, the glass between us wasn't comforting, it was just a temporary barrier. Yarnaby was a massive beast, his eyes filled with pure, mindless rage. And as I tried to make my way through and avoid detection, I wasn't alone. Because something else was there. Someone else was there. A creature, strange, stretchy, oddly helpful. I didn't know what it was, but it distracted Yarnaby just long enough for me to escape, slipping through into the vent just as the beast's claws scraped inches behind me. The prison kept pushing me forward, one nightmare after another, and I'm talking about puzzles, because I hate puzzles, and puzzles are a nightmare. In one long hall, I would even notice a weird, colorful, gooey substance that seemed to cover some of the crates, but that's when Yarnaby caught up and he would chase me. Luckily, my stranger pointed to a big yellow door at the end of the hall, otherwise I wouldn't have known where to go. After glitching through the map, I came into another room where I would find a note of one of the guards, Cole. He talked about the hour of joy and how the guards hurt the toys, so naturally they retaliated, and the humans deserved it. Moving forward, I would watch a tape that confirms that Stella Graber did know about the experiments. While she may not have known during the time from the tape back in chapter 3 with the Hartmans, she knew now, and she was okay with it. She had some demented, twisted vision of a better tomorrow, looking at the grand scheme of things. I would find myself on a narrow ledge, suspended over a massive cell. A deep, guttural growl made my stomach drop. Pianosaurus was down there. Before I knew it, the ledge crumbled beneath me, sending me plummeting right into the pit, right in front of him. It turned, looked at me, and then it lunged. But before it could sink its teeth into me,
that hit the spot. I haven't eaten in weeks. Hiya there, pal. Don't worry, I won't eat you. I'm Doey. I was told to expect you. This way. Follow me.
Despite what I just witnessed, he was oddly cheerful. Apparently, Poppy had sent him to expect me, so I followed him. I immediately noticed something about Doey. He not only seemed to have multiple layers to his voice, as if he had more than one voice or one person, the way in which he spoke gave hints about his personality. Or should I say personalities, because he seemed very conflicting, almost like a walking paradox. Cheerful and caring, but broken and hurt. However, his most concerning aspect was that I could detect malevolence in his voice, like he had a seething rage clawing to get out of his throat, like he wanted to hurt.
Interrogation rooms. They question us here after watching us. Those of us who could speak at all. I always answered.
I never gave them an answer they liked.
There was definitely an aspect to Doey that kept me on edge. Doey's abilities helped bridge gaps and navigate obstacles, his body reshaping effortlessly. It was easy to forget how truly dangerous he was. I couldn't help but wonder, how strong was Doey? Heading to the prisoner yard, we would hear about how the guards would make toys fight each other. They found their pain entertaining. Making our way forward, before you know it, while things were going so well, through a hole in the wall, an arm would stretch out and pull me in. He was lurking, right on my heels this whole time, and part of me wonders if he knew that we were hiding right there. Kissy, she looks messed up and badly injured, but we were close to our allies and surely we wouldn't have to worry about the prototype then. The three of us barely made it inside Safe Haven as that 50-foot monster with 1,000 legs stalked the perimeter. This was the last Bastion, where the surviving toys had holed up, their own fragile sanctuary hidden deep inside the prison. However, the toys didn't trust Poppy. She'd been missing for too long, and worst of all, she brought the prototype here. Poppy had a plan, though. A reckless, desperate plan. You see, some orphans had actually survived, as during the hour of joy, they weren't killed. Instead, the prototype took them and then held them deep within the labs. Poppy wanted to get them out, and then destroy the factory for good, to blow up the foundation, to wipe Playtime Co. off of the map. Doey would tell us that the doctor from the prison was actually Dr. Harley Sawyer, and he used to work at Playtime Co. He was the cruel scientist in charge of creating the toy monsters. And Doey, just talking about the doctor, he starts hulking out. Doey was not all the way on board with Poppy's plan. Not because he wanted to protect Playtime Co., but because this place, this nightmare, was home to the only family he had left, the other toys. And he wasn't ready to sacrifice them, he wasn't going to. He begged me to consider to find another way, one where I didn't have to blow up the entire place, taking everybody down with us. But there was no time for a debate, because time was ticking. Find the doctor, kill him, take the Omni-Hand, fix the generator in order to blow this place to Kingdom Come. But I had no idea what awaited me. The doctor, this sick and insidious, messed up individual, was going to be a nightmare of his own. Before heading to the next objective, we would find a recording of a conversation between Poppy and Ollie. Now, I enjoyed hearing this because we would get a little bit more insight into the mental state of Poppy to understand how she feels about the whole situation and why she's so driven to kill the prototype and destroy Playtime Co. Poppy was sad, and she was angry. The entire situation, that she, along with so many others, were turned into things, small and insignificant, that everybody around her was being hurt and tortured. Ollie would empathize with her and tell her that he would always be there for her. Heading through the sewers, I would eavesdrop on a conversation between Poppy and Doey. They were arguing about Poppy's plan to bring the whole place down, including all the toys and the family that Doey had come to love and protect. He would even talk about how Poppy disappeared without a trace, how they looked for her but they never found her, wondering how could they trust Poppy now after she abandoned them while they were being hunted. I don't know why Poppy doesn't just say that she was trapped in a case, that she got caught, because if it were me, I would probably just say, "Sorry bro, he caught me, he encased me, I couldn't do jack." But she doesn't justify or give any reasons. Instead, she gets called away to attend to Missy. With that conversation tabled for now, in a room with a vat, I would find a report about a subject 1322C, a Matthew Hallard, who coincidentally has many of the same qualities that Doey has portrayed. Charisma, great leadership, but also deep insecurities due to him having been unable to save his family from the accident that orphaned him. One thing to note is that this is the first report we see with an alphabet designation attached. So where is 1322A or B? And if Matthew is Doey, why did I just think about Jack, the boy from the beginning of the chapter who fell into the vat? And then I scrolled further down to see a note from Stella, who said that Matthew would be good if his personality meshed well with the other two. My initial suspicions that there may be more than one person inside of Doey are starting to gain shape and feel a little more plausible. If so, we have Matthew and Jack, but who's the third person living in Doey? The path ahead seemed straightforward, until it wasn't, because when I unlocked this giant metal door, Yarnaby was on the other end, trying to claw his way through to me. While I spent over an hour dying in trying to solve this rerouting puzzle as Yarnaby prowled, I would eventually unlock the exit. But Yarnaby would burst through, so I had no choice but to run. Soon, I would swing across a fiery pit to safety. However, when Yarnaby tried to jump across and get to me, he would get hooked, and his flammable fur would set on fire. I continued forward, the adrenaline still wearing off, and my hands were shaking. I hated that I spent so much time trying to beat that section. I would then find our Cheerful Giant, who was looking for generator parts, until a nearby pipe ruptured, spewing a blast of freezing gas. Doey barely had any time to react before the frost enveloped him. He let out a strangled noise, his body stiffening as ice crystallized across his form. Hurts. I cut the flow off, and the freezing mist slowly faded. But Doey remained locked in agony, shivering violently, and it must have been incomprehensibly painful, because all he can muster to say is that it hurts. He doesn't say anything else for a while. When I step outside, Doey would end up talking about how the big mean doctor riddled this place with traps, making it impossible for him to get around. The doctor knows that the cold is his weakness, and how much pain that it causes him. His voice quivered with fear, defeat, and bloodlust hate. He would try consoling himself, but it was more like the individuals inside of his body were talking to each other, saying, "Hey, it's okay, you're okay." But there was no time to waste. I left Doey to recover and I pushed forward, stepping back into the prison. The doctor's voice intruded upon the silence, slithering through the speakers, calm, thoughtful. He mused about me, about my resilience, how the prototype feared me, and how strange it was that Playtime Co. had ever let somebody like me slip through their fingers. He spoke as if we had history, like he should have recognized me, but he didn't. And that only intrigued him even more. God, I hate this guy. Such a great voice actor, but geez, this doctor is a pompous D-bag. Then the trap came. A hand scanner, innocent at first until I pressed my palm against it. A deafening hiss filled the air as freezing gas flooded the room, locking my hand in place. As the cold bit into me, the doctor continued his monologue, but this time it was different. He wasn't just taunting me, he was revealing something. Poppy knew about the hour of joy before it happened. She knew, and she never told me. Poppy was very manipulative, using her perceived innocence as a little girl doll and only telling me exactly what I needed to hear and only that, while leaving out certain details. A master of equivocation herself, Tyrion Lannister would be proud of her. The doctor was right. She had been constructing the entire narrative, pulling strings like I was her doll. Poppy betrayed us. And if there's anything we know about humans, it's that they are creatures of habit. She is probably going to betray me again. I reached for a spare blue hand, my vision an icy blur, the frost creeping up my arm. I slapped the replacement against the scanner and disabled the system, the room groaning back to life. The temperature rose and I entered a room which encased the doctor's preserved lungs. Regardless of if he was right about Poppy or the monsters he created, that they were nothing more than beasts who wouldn't hesitate to destroy us, the fact is, he's not a saint either. So, I shattered his lungs to dust. Charging forward, I would grab a mask and try to collect codes scattered amongst the biohazardous red mist, which caused auditory hallucinations. I heard conversations between scientists and their subjects, the kids before they were turned into monsters. These orphans believed that they were being prepared to get adopted by families only to be betrayed and turned into abominations. It is so messed up. It is beyond fucked. I even saw a green Huggy Wuggy with hands missing, blood stained on his wrists, and his eyes sewn shut. Good God. I should also mention at this time, my right hand was glitched and I couldn't use it for this entire section. Lots of glitches in this game. The doctor would perseverate about how Poppy would instantly sacrifice us if it meant she gets whatever she wants. That the only differentiating factor between Poppy and the doctor is that he is striving for something that humanity would actually benefit from. I don't know how turning people into toys means humanity gets a win, unless there's something happening in the outside world that we just don't know about. Like, maybe the human race is on the verge of extinction and Playtime was low-key trying to find a way to make it so that humans could live on in bodies that wouldn't lose to whatever catastrophe was out there. A very common trope in horror games, by the way. I think it's very easy to see things from the perspective of good versus evil, with you being on the good side, but sometimes, if you take a step back, view things from the other side, see their point of view, you begin to question if you yourself are on the right side of history, like in Helldivers. A tape would show us that Dr. White, under the directive of Lathe Pear, would actually betray Dr. Sawyer, the doctor we're fighting right now. Apparently, the doctor kept making mistakes, and so they chose to wire him into the infrastructure of Playtime Co. They removed his physical form, making him digital, but they kept his intellect intact for the purpose of the project. Whenever scientists or anybody else working on the projects had questions about experiments, the doctor was supposed to just answer. Now, this wasn't the brightest idea, giving him the ability to control the entire prison, basically, maybe even further beyond. While completely being digitized, it's no wonder he can see and manipulate everything down here. Like, what did Pierre and White think was going to happen? A guy who is as pride-driven and smart like the doctor isn't going to just let them get away with this betrayal. No, he's going to want to get revenge. But it doesn't matter, because we destroy another of the doctor's organs. Soon after which, we would end up falling for one of his traps, one that sent us into a pit with more of his pets. Luckily, the one little sheep that was attacking me glitched and got stuck, giving me time, without pressure, to find the batteries needed to open the door. Once through, he would try to put me in a dilemma. Do I take the life away from this innocent toy and then escape? Or do I let it live, where I would end up dying? I didn't hesitate. I know how this works. That toy isn't actually living. It would eventually die, and probably not in a kind way. I am doing the individual a favor, showing it kindness. And my mission is for the greater good, right? Riding an elevator up, we would find ourselves walking through a hall surrounded by TVs on both sides, but that is nothing compared to what we see when we confront the doctor. And I don't mean his preserved brain circled by more TVs. I mean the legion of robots that were creeping below the ground I fell under as I tried to grab the batteries and open my way back up. It's interesting to see that the doctor didn't even really align himself with the Playtime Co. agenda, with Elliot or the prototype. He only cared about science, his discovery, and his achievements in the world. In his words, he only cared about paving the golden path. I wonder what he meant by that. Now, I really want to know what's going on outside of this hellhole. With the acquisition of the Omni-Hand, we are now able to repair the safe haven generator. However, on the way back, I think I missed something and I ended up glitching below the floor to see some sort of mining area. Now, I wonder if this mining area is going to be significant later on. Reconvening with Poppy and Doey, it's time to fix the generator, but that's when Ollie rings in, panicking that the prototype is right outside. Poppy begs Doey to fight him off, but you can tell that Doey is scared, petrified. He really doesn't want to have to. But reluctantly, he goes. Using my Iron Man hand, I get to work and I fix the generator. Poppy is relieved. Doey seems to have been successful at staving the prototype off, but he's still not back. Poppy tells me that I need to set up the explosives and rig this place to blow to smithereens, but I mean, Doey still had stuff to say. He wanted to talk about it more, and Poppy didn't want to listen. She was always cutting him off, evading, or the conversation was always conveniently interrupted. Doey isn't on board with this decision, but she tells me to do it anyway. Finding another tape, we would learn about Kevin Barnes, an orphan, experiment 1322B. This was the third person inside of Doey. So this confirms Jack, Kevin, and Matthew are the three entities sharing Doey's body. But you see, Kevin had explosive bouts of anger. He was very confrontational. He had little to no friends, and the ones that he did have, he would end up hurting, especially during moments of intense play. He was physically above average, and Dr. Sawyer denoted him as perfect for the project, and yet the scientists recording this called him a ticking time bomb. Kevin was extremely emotionally unstable, and he was liable to turn on others, even those he trusted, the slightest stray feeling, and Kevin would get overwhelmed. The scientists' concern was that because Doey was an experiment created for the purpose of filling multiple roles, wearing different hats, he didn't want any of the consciousnesses inside of Doey to throw each other off, destabilizing Doey. Imagine what it would be like if Doey hulked out. As the scientists put it, he's basically 900 pounds of dough, and he can shift himself into whatever he wants. If we were to be on the receiving end of one of his emotional breakdowns, well, I don't want to know what 19 inches of venom looks like coming from Doey. According to this tape we find a little later on, Jack's parents figured out what that actually looks like. After Jack fell in the vat, Playtime experimented on him, and then invited his parents back to see their boy. Now, while Mom was happy to an insane level, just elated to have her boy back, even if he did look like 900 pounds of Play-Doh, Dad was gritting at the teeth. He was mad at the scientists for what they did to his son. He didn't see Jack anymore. He didn't see a human. He saw a monster and he wanted to leave. But Mom believed her boy was still her boy. She desperately wanted to talk to him, and so they entered the room. But Doey, breathing heavily, didn't want to talk to them.
Leave me alone.
Hey, you'll be okay, I promise. Mommy's only here to talk.
No, I don't want to talk. Get out!
Susan, I think we should leave.
Jackie, I'm staying right here. I'm not leaving you, not ever again. Do you hear me?
The gentle voices lie. I know what they do. They lie, and they poke, and they hurt.
Susan, get away from me!
Jack? Mommy won't lie to you, Jackie. Mommy won't hurt you. I'd never hurt you.
Hey, open this door! Oh, God. Susan! Please, open the door! Please!
Low-key though, poor Doey. Why did the scientists let the parents in? They knew all of the emotional instability he had, the personalities within him, the likelihood of a complete meltdown due to such an emotionally supercharged event, seeing his parents. You all get me. I don't know why the scientists let them through. After setting the charges, routing the gas, preparing the place to blow, I had to escape the Foundation. However, Doey would find me. And I could tell that he was on the edge of frenzy, believing that he led the prototype away until an explosion set off. simply and dejectedly remarking, he slimed away. On the way back to Safe Haven, I heard his wails bellowing through the air, his sobs pounding away. Catching up with him, surrounded by the ruins of Safe Haven, everybody around us was dead, but there was no sign of Poppy or Missy. Doey would relent, apologizing for not protecting his family, blaming himself. He felt like he wasn't enough and that he was only made to destroy. But then, his tone quickly changed from lamenting to the precipice of berserker's rage, as he turns to me and he says that everything hurts, and that he needs to hurt back. It is at this moment that we would begin to see the three consciousnesses and the personalities clashing. Doey would snap back into crying for his friends and his family. Guys, my eyes were wide open at this point. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I could kind of feel it in my bones and my breath stopped. Kevin was about to take over. He pointed at me, his other self directing his wrath towards me and at Poppy, saying that this all started and happened because of us. I could now see the blood in his teeth. He was seething with unrelenting, boiling rage, but he kept oscillating back and forth between hate, sorrow, reason, and animalistic fury, until he hit himself in the head before promising to kill me, and then tapping the pillar next to him, which caused the ceiling above to collapse on him. It's kind of sad to see Doey turn from the lovable fluffy doughboy to this monster, revealing the three people that are inside of him, who are likely in unending pain and distress on multitudes of levels. Now, after dying so many times, because every time I would revive, Doey would insta-kill me, I finally make it to the elevator, narrowly escaping, until I would jump off the map and glitch through the floor again. I could hear Doey's stomping, getting closer, his screeches of being unable to save everybody, and his hate for me tearing through the walls, clawing at my neck. Finding ourselves in the mining area, which we saw through the glitched ground earlier, Doey was unfortunately our boss fight. It pained me to have to freeze and saw him off, most especially whenever I would hear him scream that everything hurts, that he doesn't want to be here anymore, that he wants to just go home, he's crying for his mommy and daddy. For Doey, for many of these toys, existence is pain. Freezing and shattering him into a puddle of goo, I would exit the area, except Doey wasn't actually dead. He took me from behind, hateful of everybody who kept hurting him. Luckily, he has a habit of smacking the things around him. Shooting a cryo canister next to him releases me, and as he writhes in agony, I pull the grinder above down onto him. But he really wanted to live. Through the pain and agony and the torture that I just put him through, he was still holding it up. His last words were about how everybody lies to him, how he tried to be better, what everybody needed, but that he was never enough. Until he was crushed, not only by the colossal grinder that I slammed on top of him, twisting and boring into his back, but by the weight of his inability to reconcile his trauma.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Next to a tape recording of Doey was a cutout of Huggy Wuggy, our dear friend from the very beginning of Chapter 1. Doey needed to talk, to get something off of his chest, but he felt like he couldn't trust anybody else. He has seen so much horror. It's traumatizing, and he says that he can't keep his head straight, but that the others look to him for leadership, so he has to be their captain. But he reveals that before he took charge, it was actually Poppy who was leading them, telling everybody what to do and where to go. Poppy was nice, and she made sense. But when Poppy vanished, Doey was scared, and he was forced into the role of having to be the one who made sense for everybody and directed them. He considered that Poppy might have just run off, and he thought about doing the same to save himself. But This is what makes Doey such a cool character. He stood for something more than just himself. He represented the ideals of a true leader. He knew that he was more powerful than the others, that he was more capable than they were. And he felt responsible for them. He couldn't just leave them. Even though they were all terrified, Doey chose to be like Spider-Man, where even in the face of overwhelming horrors, he knew that with great power comes great responsibility. Despite fear shaking in his chest, Doey would stand tall at the forefront of everybody else, shoulders back, top hat on, face determined, ready to fight. This tape was a letter to himself, a reminder in case he ever forgot that there are people who look up to him, people who need him, that he should never abandon anybody else for selfish gain. Speaking of selfish gain, we slid down into a vent block where we find Poppy and Kissy. Poppy was trying to get a hold of Ollie, but then she turned scornfully to me and was upset with me for killing Doey, questioning if I even planted the explosives. It's crazy how you could serve somebody for 4 whole chapters and then one thing goes wrong and now you're the villain. Ollie's voice would cut us off though, except his voice wasn't so friendly anymore. He menacingly revealed that he knew our precise location.
Ollie, something's gone horribly wrong. The safe haven...
Shelf ventilation block B6. Is this where you are, Poppy?
What?
Stay where you are.
And listen closely. You're not going to run. You're not going to fight. The charade is over.
Who is this?
An obvious question with an obvious answer.
You. What did you do with Ollie?
I'm right here, Poppy.
For you,
I'll always
be here.
And those are the same words that he told Poppy back on that tape. With Missy shaking in fear, forming into a fetal position, trying to self-soothe, we would hear multiple voices, including CatNap, Mommy, the doctor, and some from even the VHS tapes, proving that, just like Mommy said, they all become part of the prototype, like some eldritch horror. Poppy would attempt to put on a brave face, but...
Stop that!
You don't need to pretend anymore.
Poppy! You don't need to play at being stronger than you are.
You can
come home.
How much do you know?
Everything.
Come home, he said, just like a parent who would tell their kid who ran away to come home. That's when things started to click. Elliot's office, the picture of the redhead girl and Kissy, him saying come home, turning kids into toys, the prototype refusing to kill Poppy and instead encasing her. When Poppy asks him what he's going to do with her, he says he's got something special for her, something that she will never want to leave. And then he would use the word disappointed to describe how he felt that Poppy didn't see things his way. I mean, parents are often disappointed in us when we don't see things their way. And for him, all that time that Poppy spent inside of the case, he hoped she would see the point. The point in what? I'm not sure yet. But he says,
It's always been about you
and we'll harm you. What we are. That's not a truth that can be burnt away. No, not when it can mean so much more.
Prototype. Please.
It's time to come home.
Poppy.
With this context, him saying you and me, especially after Elliot's wife left him. Oh, and what about the death in the beginning that shattered Elliot? Remember that biography tape from the very beginning that explained how Elliot went mad and recused into the factory? Into the experiments where he just shoved himself into work? A death in the family of a loved one can often drive somebody to utter madness. Just look at Superman from the Injustice timeline, or the other game I covered, Nobody Wants to Die, where one guy literally created immortality because he was upset that his wife died. Which, by the way, I love my wife, so I get it. Elliot probably couldn't accept Poppy's death, so instead he turned her into a toy because the human form is limiting, but as a toy, without a rotting human body, Elliot, the prototype, would never have to lose his daughter again. He said, "What we are isn't a truth that could be burned away. No matter what, whether you like it or not, you are tied by blood to your family." Poppy would beg Prototype in the way a kid would beg their parents to not punish them. He would just tell his daughter it's time to come home. But Poppy, fearful of imprisonment again, and not with the same conviction that Doey had, would apologize before turning tail and abandoning both me and Kissy. Kissy, in disbelief by her betrayal, would watch her scurry away. The prototype, using the explosives he liberated from where I had placed them, would taunt us before saying,
"As for you two, try to land on your feet."
Poor Kissy. Her arm, which was already kind of damaged, tore off as she sacrificed herself to save me. And that was so nice of her, to instinctively, immediately lunge after me and try to protect me. Why is she so different than the vicious Huggy Wuggy? Also, if I am human, how did I just survive that fall? I think I fell straight onto the rocks, so how am I still alive without any damage? Giving Missy's arm a high five and proceeding forward, we would find rows of poppy flowers. Playtime was growing them here, scanning my way through and popping in a tape. Just like it was in the beginning, Lythe would talk about security. He maniacally laughs, saying that we're not supposed to be there, that intruders are going to be shot. With the alarm sounding off, I look outside the door, and we see something wobbling over towards us, its footsteps stomping closer. Its arm is missing, so it's gotta be Kissy. Actually, hold on, wait. Wait, wasn't it her other arm that was torn off? That's when...
If I were you, I'd start running.
If you like the fact that Huggy Wuggy is still alive after all these years, give this video a like, and let me know what you think about the series. When is Chapter 5 coming out? What do you expect is going to happen? What did I miss or what did I get wrong? And if you actually made it this far, drop an emoji in the comments and let me know that you are a real one. YouTube thinks you're going to like this video on screen next, so I'm going to see you over there.